everybody, and welcome to today's training. So, in today's training, we are going to talk about how to review and analyze job descriptions because that's essential to aligning your resume better and also preparing for interviews. So, officially, the title of this training is Reviewing and Analyzing Job Descriptions Better Align Your Resume and Prepare for Interviews. The reason I put this training together is because during our recently concluded workshop, we got a lot of questions. And I actually do go back and take a look at the questions to see if there are any questions that are kind of recurring. And one of the questions I kept seeing was, oh, how do I deal with experience on my resume? What do I need to do to meet experience requirements? Or I've been putting my resume out there and I'm not getting callbacks. So I put this short training together, hopefully to help you all as you move forward in your careers and applying. And that way, hopefully, by using this information, you get more callbacks for interviews. So if you guys are ready for this training, let me see it in the chat. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the topics. All right, so let's go ahead. So here are the topics that we're going to talk about today. So the first is the importance of job descriptions. The second is we're going to talk about decoding job descriptions. And then I'm going to link that to how you align your resume to the job descriptions. And then we're going to wrap up with how you prepare for interviews based on the information you see in the job descriptions. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the importance of job descriptions. So we talked about this a little bit during the workshop last week, but I know some of you might not have been there. So let's talk about three key things about job descriptions. So if you've ever applied for a job or looked online at a job description, you'll notice that there are usually two key things there, right? The required skills and the responsibilities of the role. Now, those are very important because what I call them is the job description essentially is a cheat sheet of what the company is looking for. So they're telling you already in the job description, this is the kind of person that we're going to call for an interview. This is the kind of person that we're looking to hire. So if your resume is not matching the job description, the likelihood that you're going to get a callback is very low. If you guys understand that, put that in the chat, let us see. Because unfortunately, a lot of people use one base resume that they have not aligned to the job, right? They just use that to apply for hundreds of jobs. And then they start saying, oh, I've applied to hundreds of jobs and nobody's giving me a callback. Quite honestly, it's not the company's fault. Maybe it's your fault because you did not take the time, right, or invest the time to actually make sure that resume is speaking to the needs of the company. If you really think about it, the reason a company is hiring is because they are trying to meet a business need. They want someone to perform a job duty. And in the job description, they've listed the exact skills they need and they've listed the expected responsibilities of this person, the roles and responsibilities. So if they've taken the time to say, this is the person we want to pay to work for us, why won't you take the time to show them that you are the right person to do that job by giving them a resume that's aligned? If you guys are understanding, let me see in the chat. Okay. So again, it's very important to know that your resume being aligned to the job description is critical. And there are so many jobs out there, right? And yes, some companies, sometimes I think there have been articles that say some jobs or some roles are not necessarily real. But when you think about in the grand scheme of things, there are way more real jobs than those that are not real. So instead of thinking about maybe there's a problem with the jobs that I'm applying to, you want to critically analyze yourself and your resume to determine, am I doing something wrong? Or maybe if you're not doing something wrong, you can actually ask yourself, can I do something better, right? Can I improve what I'm doing in order to make my resume speak to the recruiters and the hiring managers? So again, the key part that you need to understand about job descriptions is they're not just there just because the teams actually take that time to put it together, because it shows the kind of person that they are looking to hire. All right. So if that gives you guys a baseline of why we're doing this training, let me see it in the chat. Let's see in the chat. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So I'm saying yeses Awesome. So now that we kind of understand this, and again, I want you to always think about the job description as this is the cheat sheet. They're telling me what they want. Let me use this information to make myself the right candidate. So now, based on that, we are going to decode a couple of job descriptions. And our next section here would be decoding job descriptions. So what I did was I went to LinkedIn, that's my search engine of choice or job search engine of choice, and I selected two job titles that I want to talk through today. So because of time, we can't look at every single aspect of the job titles, however, of the job description rather. However, I'm going to give you a method to think about it so that anytime you want to apply to any role, you can critically think through those pieces. All right, so let's keep going here. So the first role, right, that I pulled up was an IT SOX auditor. That was the title. Again, our focus in our program is IT, cybersecurity audit, and compliance. So I would be selecting those job titles. And here, I don't want you to try and read everything now. We'll take a look at this in a bit. But here you'll see that the job description, it says a little bit about the job and it says what the requirements are. So this is essentially saying these are the things that we need this person to have. We want the person to meet these requirements. And I've highlighted two that we're going to talk about in a minute, but I just highlighted those there. And then you can see below that they have what technical skills, analytical skills, organization, and interpersonal skills. So they've taken the time to show you that there are different things they're looking for. Now, one of the things I want you to note, and for those of you that attended the workshop, you should have heard some of this during the workshop. If you look below, right, this field, cybersecurity audit and compliance, is not all technical. That's what I was trying to tell some of you that were saying, oh, it's all, I need to have 8 years of IT experience and all of that. It's not all technical. You can see they have technical skills there, but they quickly also put in analytical skills. Because if you have technical skills, but you don't have analytical skills, you will not be a good fit for the job. Because you can have all the IT skills you want, but can you do basic Excel analysis, right? On Microsoft Excel, can you look at data in a way or a problem situation and figure out how to use data to solve that problem? You don't have to have a master's in cybersecurity to do that, right? They also talk about organization and interpersonal skills. Soft skills are critical for audit and compliance because you are constantly or consistently working with people. You have to have emotional intelligence. You have to know how to approach people the right way to get the information you want from them. So it's a balance of technical skills, analytical skills, and organization skills. What we find is that sometimes people are so focused on the technical skills, they don't put enough emphasis on the soft skills, the analytical skills, and the interpersonal skills. And so their resume is not balanced and they don't get a job. So you may feel like you've loaded up your resume with all these technical skills, but if you don't have the right balance, especially based on what the job description is looking for, you may still not get a call back. Is this helping anyone? If it is, let me see in the chat, because your resume has to be aligned and balanced with what the job description is looking for. So if we're looking at this particular job description, you would want to note, you can see at the top where it says general IT experience, ability to understand new technologies. You have your audit skills, obviously, project management skills. Who remembers from day 3 of the workshop? Do you guys remember? From day 3 of the workshop, right? We talked about mistakes on your resume. Who remembers that I said you need to have project management skills on your resume? If you guys do, see, it's right here in a job description. So I'm telling you guys the truth. So it's absolutely critical for you to know that you need to balance your resume. Another thing I want to touch on before we talk about aligning our resume for this role is if you look at the top, can you guys tell me in the chat how many years of experience are they looking for? How many years of experience are they looking for? It's 3. A lot of you guys might, maybe somebody has told you somewhere that you need 5 to 8 years of experience. That is not true. Do your research and gather your data for yourself, because what you end up doing is stopping yourself when nobody is stopping you, and then you wonder why you're not making progress. It's because you have not taken the time to look at what's actually required, right? It says 3+ years experience within IT SOX auditing. It doesn't say 3 years of experience with a job title of IT audit. If you've done anything related to IT SOX auditing in that period of time, it qualifies, guys. So at the end of the day, if you guys remember from the workshop, one of the things I said was you have to show that you are able to do the job. Period. That's what they're looking for. Whatever your title was in the last place, the reason they're asking for IT and SOX auditing experience is because that's what you'll be doing in this role, right? So if you have that experience, if you've gained those skills somehow, you can qualify to apply for this role. If this is helping anybody, please let me know. Right. And then remember also, which we'll talk about this later, the kinds of skills you need to leverage. But I wanted to just first break this down a bit. So you literally have to read what's on the screen. Don't bring your hangups from whatever happened with another job. Yes, you might have been disappointed with another job, but this is a fresh opportunity. Focus on the opportunities that exist for this opportunity and move forward, as opposed to thinking about obstacles. All right. Okay. I see. Helpful, helpful, helpful. Great, great, great. Now, let's now further break this down. So again, it's the same job description, but when you're aligning your resume, I want you to always think of 4 things that you'll do, okay? So one is you want to make sure that your job duties are rewarded to align from the perspective of the job description. I actually have another video I posted on my channel that talks about how to use ChatGPT to refine the words and your bullet points. If you have not watched that, it's absolutely important to watch it because you see how a bland, 1 sentence statement gets updated to align more with audit and compliance. You get to see that in that video. So you need to do that. So let's say, for example, you had help desk experience. That's just coming to mind right now. So if you had help desk experience and part of what you were doing was creating user access or removing terminated users, you might, instead of saying it from the help desk perspective, you have to recognize that those activities are part of the audit and compliance process. So you're going to reward it to say that you participated in audit and compliance efforts related to user access management. It's the same work, but you're now rewarding it differently. So that's what you need to do. So for example, in this particular one, where they talk about audit techniques, proficient in audit methodologies, I'm looking at number 3 here, the one I have highlighted as number 3, proficient in audit methodologies, risk assessment, and internal control frameworks. You have to think about what is it that I've done or what skills have I gained that allow me to be proficient in this? Right? Because they've not qualified that proficiency. Did you acquire it as part of a training program? Have you done something that's similar to this, even if it wasn't from an IT perspective? Look at what you've done holistically and reward that to match, right? Let's go back to number 1. So general IT experience, including IT security or IT risk management experience, strong knowledge of IT general controls. Again, if you already have knowledge of IT general controls, either as part of your work, even if it was not an IT audit role, or as part of a training program that you attended that really gave you those practical skills, you can align whatever you have on your resume to match, right? The number 2 item says ability to gain and an understanding of new technologies and applications and identify associated risks. Again, that's something that's pretty generic, that you can use any scenario from your prior experience where you've had to learn a new technology at your job, even if you were in accounting and you had to learn a new software to use. If you're in manufacturing and you had to learn a new software to use, you can update your resumes and the bullet points to show that you have the ability to understand new technologies and applications and identify any issues there. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying here? Let me see in the chat. So again, you have to critically read each one. And instead of automatically saying, oh, no, I don't have that, you have to think and say, am I sure I don't have that? Is there anything I've done that would show that I have this? Have I gained skills somewhere that show I have this? Those are all things that you can do. And then number 4 item here, compliance knowledge. It says compliance knowledge, okay? Knowledge of SOX requirements, ITGC's application controls, and data analytics tools. So you guys gained some knowledge of this last week at the workshop if you attended. In my program, the 8 weeks or the 12 weeks program, they absolutely end up with the knowledge of this, the fundamentals and VIP, right? So if you know how to do this, then you can apply, right? So they haven't said you must have worked in these areas for 5, 6, 7 years. They just want to know that you know these items and that you are able to do the practical work associated with it. And then the number 5 item I talked about earlier, project management, experience in managing multiple audit projects simultaneously, including planning, executing, and reporting. So this is speaking to your project management skills. Even if you have not had a core IT audit experience, think about any projects that you've managed and see how you can leverage that to talk about the compliance aspects of that project. Even a traditional project manager, right? We talk about project risks because I've done project management before. So if we talk about project risks, risk associated with the project. So those are all things that you can consider including on your resume as you see fit. And then number 6 here, the last item is communication and collaboration. Again, strong written and verbal communication skills. Absolutely critical. You cannot do without that in the audit and compliance work, and almost anyone can include that on your resume. So again, as I've just talked about, you want to make sure your job duties, you look at the ones that are relevant that you can reward. You may not be able to reward every single one of them, but the ones that you can, absolutely do that to increase the alignment. The second one, which I've already talked about also, is include keywords from the job description. So in this job description, you see they've talked about SOX a lot. They've talked about IT general controls. They've talked about Excel, SQL. So those are things that you can include on your resume, of course, if you have those skills. So make sure that you include all those keywords so that when the ATS system is scanning your resume, it's scanning that you have the required skills. And again, I've talked about make sure you include the required soft skills, communication, project management. And last but not least, you want to also leverage transferable skills, right? So if you've worked as a business analyst before and you're very familiar with how to manage or gather requirements, right? So gathering requirements requires you to do interviews, right? Typically with people to gather requirements. Guess what that aligns with when we talk about IT audits? It aligns with IT audit walkthroughs, because IT audit walkthroughs are just interviews where you're gathering information from the control owners. So do you see how there are transferable skills there? So don't think it's about the title. It's not about the title, it's about the job responsibilities. Even as a project manager, you've managed engagements, tasks, people, you've tracked project risks, you've tracked managing stakeholders. Those are all transferable skills that you can bring into the field. And also, if you're working as a help desk technician, you already have a bunch of IT knowledge, right? You've probably participated in various compliance activities as well. So those are transferable skills you can use. And I think I have another video just on transferable skills on my YouTube channel that you can watch that actually breaks down the different transferable skills for different skill areas. So I'm going to pause and see, let's see in the chat. Do you guys now see how you can critically review this resume? And based on these bullet points that I put on the left, rewarding the job duties to align, including keywords, including required soft skills, and leveraging transferable skills. Do you see how you can then use that to improve your job application and your resume for this job? If you do see that, let me see in the chat. Because as you guys know, I always want to add value. I don't want you to be here not learning. Awesome. All right. So when the thing about training is this, right? You sit here and you think it's awesome, and I say thank you. But the next step is action. So now when you want to start applying, I want you to think about this, right? And then figure out how can I actually implement this on my resume. All right. So this is the first one. So let's take a second look at the second one. So this was for an IT SOX auditor role. So I decided to do another one that's more compliance. This is for a senior information security GRC analyst. So that's a mouthful, right? But again, Similar process. I've highlighted some areas that we're going to talk about, but the exact same steps that I just followed for that IT SOX auditor role, those are the same exact steps you're going to take, right? So in the job description at the top, they've told you that the role will help ensure that information security policies and procedures are implemented and adhere to regulatory requirements. If you attended the workshop, we talked about what compliance was, right? This is helping the company to manage and monitor compliance. So that's what this role is for. And you can see that they've broken up their job description into different areas. And I'll just highlight the ones that I talked about. I'll talk about the ones I highlighted. So again, develop and implement compliance programs to mitigate risks. That's number 2. Collaborate with leadership to define and communicate governance policies and procedures. That's number 3. Number 4, work with external auditors and regulators to facilitate external assessments. Number 5, develop and update governance, compliance, and risk management policies to reflect industry best practices. And number 6, it's a combination of 3 bullet points. They're essentially soft skills. Again, analytical skills, problem solving skills, communication skills, maintaining relationships, that's all under emotional intelligence. So of course there's a lot more, but I just selected the ones that we can talk to during the time that we have here. But reading those, we're doing the same thing. We're asking ourselves the question, what do they mean by this? What have I done that aligns with this? What are the transferable skills that I have that can help me meet some of these requirements? And how do I ensure that there's a balance on my resume between my technical know-how and my soft skills? So you don't just browse a job description, because that's what a lot of people do. They just browse it, and let me tell you what the brain does. Okay, let me tell you what the brain does. The brain will automatically pick up on the ones you don't know. Have you guys ever seen that happen to you? If you have, seen in the chat, right? Your brain will automatically look at it, and instead of focusing on the opportunities of the things you do know, the brain, well, let me say, the brain that has not had a changed mindset will actually point out all the ones they don't know, right? So if you've done that before, let me see you in the chat. And that again goes back to making sure we have the right mindset, because you have to absolutely make sure you're looking at the opportunities, not the obstacles. So as you read this, don't think about the ones you don't know about. Think about the ones that you do know about, and figure out, how can I leverage what I do know to make myself a good candidate for this job? Again, how many years do we see on this particular job description? Let's see. It's right there at the bottom. It says experience and education. Again, it says 3+ years. And I'm looking I remember looking at the chat and the Q&A for the workshop, and a lot of people were saying, oh, but they're looking for 5+ years, 8+ years. I'm like, what jobs are you guys looking for? Are you looking for manager roles or director roles? Because if you're looking for the junior and senior audit or compliance roles, most of them might be like 3, maybe 5. I've even seen 1 to 2 years. And I've actually seen, when we were doing one of our coaching calls in our program, we saw one that said 0 to 3 years. So focus on the possibilities, focus on the opportunities, not on the obstacles. Because if you focus on the obstacles, then you really won't move yourself anywhere, right? So someone said, thank you for helping me decode self-sabotage, and we do it so often. So look at me, I'm not talking about just you. I do this in so many other ways myself. So I'm just to help, we're all here to help each other. We need to recognize where we are sabotaging ourselves and make sure that we fix the mindset that's causing that problem. Okay, so again, let's keep moving. Let's move on to the questions we need to ask ourselves when aligning our resumes. And again, it's still the same 4 considerations. Have your job duties rewarded. So if you look at this job description, it's talking about, the number 1 there, we say ensuring information security policies and procedures are implemented and adhere to regulatory requirements. If you've done anything related to compliance where you've had to meet policy requirements, or maybe you've had to help your department or your team meet any compliance requirements, you might have transferable skills for this, right? For number 2, develop and implement compliance programs programs. So if you've had to, in any way in your organization, let's say you are even an executive admin, I'm just using that as an example. And as an executive admin, part of your, or even an intern somewhere, part of your responsibility was to make sure that everybody on the team was completing their IT policy review, because most organizations, you have to review your policy every year. So if there was someone on your team, or if you were that person on your team that was keeping everybody up to date, making sure they have done the job there, you have done some compliance work. You're helping to ensure compliance with the company's policy about everybody taking the particular compliance training or any other training. Do you see that opportunity there? So again, I'm not saying this has to be your exact example. I'm just pointing out examples so that you can critically think about your skills and how you might have some of the skills required for the job already. Collaborate. Number 3 says collaborate with leadership to define and communicate governance policies and procedures. Again, have you ever worked with your manager to put a policy in place for something that you had to do at your workplace? Whether you were in help desk, accounting, finance, project management, what have you helped implement in your company for other people to follow through it? Those are examples of transferable skills, and ways that you can also take those job duties and reward them to align more with audit and compliance, or in whatever job role you're applying to, the job description. Okay. Include keywords. So you see a lot of risk management here. You see a lot of policies here. You want to make sure that your resume includes the words policies, risk management, governance, because those are all keywords that we have in this job description. Okay, let's keep going. So number 4 says work with external auditors and regulators to facilitate external assessments. So typically compliance, that's one of the things they do. They are the liaisons between the auditors and the IT teams. If you've done any middleman work before, being the middleman between 2 different teams, transferable skills, job duties that you can utilize, they are all in there. Number 5, develop and update governance, compliance, and risk management policies to reflect industry best practices and regulatory changes. Again, you can see there's a lot of policies here, because when it comes to compliance, there's a lot of policy work that's involved, a lot of making sure that people are meeting policies. So goes back to what I said earlier. If you've done anything relevant to or related to policies, you can reward those and rework them on your resume to make them aligned. And then the final one we have here, you can see those are all soft skills. You must have those soft skills: analytical and problem solving skills, effective communication and interpersonal abilities, ability to develop and maintain strong relationships with internal and external stakeholders, just emotional intelligence. So your resume shouldn't all be policies. It shouldn't all be audit and standards and regulations. You also want to make sure you have these soft skills, because 1, they're on the job description, so you want to make sure it's aligned. And 2, it just shows that you are a well-rounded candidate. So like I said on the first screen, you want to reward the job duties. Second is include keywords. So any of the keywords that you have here, you want to make sure you include them. The soft skills, like I just mentioned, you want to include them. And then you want to leverage any transferable skills that you may have that align with the job description. So you can see here, it's not, we're not glancing through a job description and then throwing any resume out there. We are reviewing the job description in detail and asking ourselves questions. Have I done anything related to this before? Have I acquired skills related to any of this? How can I update my resume so that the hiring manager, the recruiter, and the ATS system, the automated, the applicant tracking system, also feel like my resume is aligned because I've done all the right things. So let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions. Okay, are you guys learning? So do you guys now see how you actually review a job description? So don't just take what somebody said or what you think, review the job description yourself to apply. Okay, all right, great. I see. Okay, thank you guys in the chat. All right, so that's the first part. We've talked about the importance of job descriptions. We've talked about how to decode them and align your resume. So the final part I want to talk about today is how do you then use this information to prepare for your interviews? Because once you have a great resume out there and you start getting callbacks, you absolutely need to be ready for the interviews. All right? Okay, So let's talk about how do you prepare for interviews. Now, there are many ways to prepare for interviews, but we won't be able to cover all of them here. But I want to cover the 4 key areas, though. If you take these 4 key areas, you would go a long way. So the first one is to have scenarios that are prepared. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever been asked in an interview, tell me about a time when? If you've ever had that, just type, tell me about a time when. That is a very common interview question. Why do they want to know about a time when? Because if you can show them that you've done it in the past, then they have confidence that you can do it in the future, right? I can't remember how there's a saying that says the best predictor of future performance is past performance or something like that. I might not be saying it right. But essentially, if you're able to tell them how you've done something before, then there's more confidence that you know how to do it and that you'll be able to perform, the same duties with them. So always have your scenarios prepared, right? When you look at that job description, in the job description that's talking about experience with SOX and IT and testing, you want to make sure you have scenarios prepared that showcase what you've done there. Even if you acquired those skills in a practical training program because you've actually done it in that program, you can use those scenarios to answer that question. Related to compliance, again, it's the same thing. There were a lot of bullet points in there about policies, procedures, meeting regulatory requirements. Then you want to have scenarios prepared about how you did that before. If you go into the interview without having the scenarios prepared, it most likely won't go very well. Because when they ask you about, tell me about a time when, that's not when you want to start thinking about it. You want to already have prepared for it ahead of time so that when they ask you that question, it just rolls off your tongue. All right? Do you guys get that? And then the second thing is when you respond, you want to align your responses to showcase how you meet the job requirements. What do I mean by that? So if they ask you about policies and procedures, for example, and you have your scenario built up, make sure that scenario is actually aligning with the job description. So if let's use the example of policies and procedures, right? You're not just going to say, oh yes, I've followed policies and procedures before at my organization. That's not the response because they're looking for someone, not the person that follows the procedures, but the person that helps to enforce procedures. Do you guys see the difference? So don't just use any example and just use the word policies. Make sure it aligns from the perspective of what they're looking for. So if the role is looking for someone that enforces policies or that creates and implements policies, when you respond, you don't just say, oh, I've followed policies. You then want to talk about how you have implemented policies, how you have helped to enforce policies in the organization. Are you guys tracking? So it's not just about using the keyword and coming up with a scenario. It's also about how that scenario and those keywords actually align from the perspective of the hiring manager. The key question you have to keep asking yourself is this: how can I show the hiring manager I can do the job? And the way to show that is by looking through the job description and making sure you answer questions in a way that makes the recruiter or the hiring manager feel or know that you can do the job. All right. Thank you guys for your comments. And then another thing is you have to use the STAR approach. STAR stands for situation, task, actions, and results. So when you're preparing the same scenarios that I just talked about, this is a great way to actually prepare for it. So think about, what situation will I talk about? Was I part of the help desk team that did something? Or was I part of the project management team? Like, what was the situation? What called for me to actually do this thing, right? To perform this task. So based on that situation, you then say, this was my task, and then this is the action I took, and these were the results. When you use the STAR approach, it makes it easy for the hiring manager to understand. So if you were part of the help desk task force team that was responsible for ensuring that all user access management processes were properly implemented, you can use that scenario. You can say that your task specifically was to ensure that all the forms were completed accurately and with the right approvals and the action you took. So maybe the action you took was to review a set of the work that was done by others on a periodic basis, and then the results might be 100% compliance. So now you have a full story that outlines what you've done. Again, that particular example I didn't link to anything, but I just wanted to show you what the STAR approach stands for. So when you're able to break it down like that for the hiring manager, it lets them understand that you truly know what you're talking about. And then the last item for preparing for interviews is you want to actually have questions ready for the interviewer. Sometimes you go on an interview and they say, "Do you have any questions for me?" Always have a question, even if it's just one or two questions, and make sure it's relevant. Don't ask some off the wall question that's not relevant. Make it relevant so that they know that you've actually critically thought about the role. So your question might be, how often do you guys review your policies? What are some key challenges that you've seen in the process of implementing policies? So ask questions that will allow them to think that, you know what, this person has really thought about this job and they know some of the potential issues, so they're trying to get ahead of it. Do you see that? So always have questions ready. It just goes to show that you are well prepared, and it allows, again, the hiring manager to feel like you are a good fit. All right. So let me summarize this. Have your scenarios prepared. Align your responses to make sure they're from the perspective of the person they want on the job, right? Use the STAR approach for your responses. Talk about the situation, the task, action, and the results. And then you want to have relevant questions ready to ask the interviewer. All right. If this is helping you, again, let me see in the chat. I want to make sure that you're with me here. All right. We have quite a few of you here. Awesome. So is this good? All right, I see that. Awesome. So now we've talked about how, you review the job description, how you align your resume based on the job description, and how you prepare for interviews. Because everything I've just talked about on this screen for preparing for interviews is based on the job description. So the way you come up with your scenarios is by looking at the job description and saying, what matches with this job description? How should my responses align with this job description? What STAR response can I put together based on what they are looking for? And what are the questions that are relevant based on what they have in the job description? So that's the key thing I wanted to cover here today. But I also want you guys to remember something. You do not have to meet 100% of the job description requirements to apply. You do not have to meet 100% of the job requirements to apply. Honestly, I think I saw a stat somewhere that said, as long as you meet 60-70% of the job requirements, align what you can and move on. So the intent here, right, is not perfection. Again, once you have up to 60-70% of what they're looking for, go ahead and apply. Because guess what? There are people that are going to have 0%, 10% that are applying. Why not put yourself in the running? And there might be nobody out there that has everything. So don't take yourself out of the running and actually just see, do I know most of this? 60-70%? Go ahead and apply. And I actually saw that wording in a job description on LinkedIn just today. Do you guys see what it says down there? It says, if you don't meet all of the preferred qualifications for this position, we encourage you to still apply. Because sometimes the job description is more like, what's the word? It's like a best case scenario. Like, we would love to have all of this, but they don't need all of it, right? So they're not looking for the unicorn out there that can do everything. And that's why you can see the job description. Literally, I just saw this today and it said, still apply if you don't meet all of it. Because guess what? Maybe what you do have can still help us in this role. So if there's anything you take from this, I want you to take that. I want you to know that don't stop yourself from applying to roles. Actually think about, I know enough to do this job. Let me go ahead and give it a try. Did that help anybody? If that helped you, let me see. All right. Okay, all right. So let's do a quick review because I know we are over here, but let's do a quick review and maybe I'll take just like 5 minutes to do a Q&A. So again, this is what you've learned today. You've learned the importance of job descriptions. It tells you the skills and the requirements of the job, and it's nothing but a cheat sheet of what the company is looking for. And you've also learned about how to decode job descriptions. You literally have to read it. You can't just skim it. You have to read it to look for what is it that they're looking for, and then you align your resume based on the pointers that I gave you. And then the last one is preparing for interviews. Again, I gave you those considerations, those 4 areas for you to consider based on what you've seen in the job description. So that way you give yourself the best chance of being first called back for the interview because you have a great resume, and 2, getting the job offer because you can, convince them during the interview that you can do the job. All right. So let me see if I'll take a couple of questions. And again, before we move on, because I know some of you are going to have to drop. So just a quick reminder, enrollment is still open for our program. So if you are interested in learning the skills, because the problem with a lot of people have is they have some transferable skills, but they don't have the practical skills, like the auditing skills or the compliance skills or the policy skills. So those are the kinds of things that we teach in our program. We are a practical training program. That is the key word. We're not teaching you theory. We're not teaching you 4 steps to do this or 5 steps to do that. Nope. We're teaching you what do you need to do when you're working in this role. So if you know that you need those skills and you have a skills gap, yes, you may have some transferable skills, but you really need to know, what SOX audit, how can I perform SOX audits? How can I do actual testing? How can I do compliance work? If you know you need those, then I truly, truly know that our program can help you. So feel free to enroll. Let's talk about what you guys have learned today. If you guys learned, can you let me see in the chat before I let you go? Because my goal every time I'm on a training call is to make sure that I'm adding value. All right, thank you, Tomiko. All right, great. Hopefully others of you learned as well since you stayed here with me the whole time. And remember, one of the reasons I did this was because there are a lot of people that have challenges. I want you to link it together. So let me wrap up with this. There were a lot of people having challenges understanding job descriptions and how that applies to them as they are looking for a role in a new field. Again, for us, it's IT, cybersecurity, audit, and compliance. So hopefully what I've just shown you here today shows you what's the skills you already have, plus the skills that you'll get in a program such like our IT audit and compliance fundamentals program, how you can utilize those, review job descriptions, and apply effectively to get roles. That's the point, right? So I don't like doing training for training's sake. So you say, oh yeah, I learned. No, I don't want professional students. How do you actually apply that information? So now you know what you can do to take your transferable skills and acquired skills from a training program and use that to decode job descriptions so that you can effectively align your resume and prepare for job interviews so that you can land the role. That's the whole point of this training, and hopefully you guys get that point. All right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. And if you have any questions for me, just email hello@youritcareer.com and we will get back to you. Again, thank you guys, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.